Hey, good day to you. This is Stan Perchowski at Perchowski Estate Law. This is the Ask Stan Show live Facebook feed every Thursday at 12 noon. Today is July the 16th and it's 12 noon on time, and here we are. Once again, this is your opportunity to ask Stan, which is me, any questions you have on estate planning, and actually I'll entertain any question at all, just whatever you're in the mood for. But basically we want to address estate planning questions. And as usual, I usually have something to discuss in case I don't get any live questions. Anyway, I wanted to go over, on my website, I have a tab on my website it's called Celebrity Estates. And, everybody hears about the famous people and what happens with their estates and that. And sometimes we can learn some lessons from that, because they're people too, and they don't do everything perfect. They may be wealthy, but they should do things better, but a lot of them don't. You'd be surprised. But we try to keep up with it. There was one that caught my attention. It wasn't that real big popular estate, but had some interesting undertones to it that I wanted to review, because I think there's some real lessons to learn from it. And that is, everybody remembers Sonny and Cher. I mean, if you're an oldie fan like me, Sonny Bono, Cher Bono. Well, if you remember, they broke up. That was Sonny's second wife. He ended up with four. Anyway, they broke up, and he went on to be a congressman. Okay. Well, anyway, he was skiing in 1998, and he skied right into a tree, is the way I understand it. Anyway, he was killed. It was a tragic accident. He was age 62. He died. He didn't have anything in place. His then surviving spouse had commented, he said many times that he meant to have something drawn up, a will or a trust plan, but he just simply never got around to it. So my understanding is that at the time of his death, his estate was worth in the neighborhood of $2 million. Not a huge estate, but in 1998, I mean, nothing to sneeze at either. So anyway, his fourth wife, which was the surviving spouse, her name was Mary Bono. Unfortunately, she spent years and years. It was something like it was dragged out for something like 12 years, is what if I remember. 10, 12 years resolving this estate, and she was battling just to become the executor of the estate. She also had to put up with a lawsuit from several people that were trying to get a piece of the pie. And one of the people that was trying to get a piece of the pie, surprisingly enough, was Cher. Now, I asked myself this question too. I remember when Sonny and Cher were married, and then, they got divorced. And if you remember, Cher went off, and I don't know how many marriages she had, but I remember she married Greg Allman from the Allman Brothers, and they were married for 7 days, 9 days, and she filed for divorce, and all that pure publicity stuff. But I got thinking, when I saw that she was trying to get a piece of Sonny Bono's estate, I wondered under what theory, she's not surviving spouse, she wasn't an heir, the only way she could get anything if you're not a blood descendant and you're divorced would be if you're actually named in the will. I guess he could have left something to Cher if he actually wrote her in the will, but remember, Sonny died intestate without a will. He never got around to writing one. So I was curious as to how, she tried to get a piece of the action, because she sued the estate for quite a bit of money. Well, it turned out that Cher claimed that Sonny owed her $1.6 million in unpaid alimony or spousal support from the divorce. Now, that would suggest, I don't know that, I never saw the pleadings for that, but that would suggest that Sonny didn't pay his alimony. I don't know, maybe not. But $1.6 million in unpaid alimony. Cher also claimed that he was supposed to pay, or was ordered by the court to pay $25,000 a month for 6 months, which is $150,000 child support, and she wanted $41,000 in attorney's fees. Okay, so she sued, and here's the thing that was surprising me: she tried to become the executor, and she battled with the fourth wife, which was Mary Bono, to become not the executor. If you got a will, it's executed, and you appoint an executor to do that. If you don't have a will, the estate is administered, and the court will appoint an administrator for that. So they battled over who was the administrator, because there was no will. It finally ended up being Mary Bono, the surviving spouse. But I was curious as to what theory she was trying to be the administrator. Well, it turns out, she sued for all this money, so she was suing as a creditor. A lot of people don't realize this, but if you owe money at death, your heirs just can't sit on their hands and wait, 12 months or whatever the time is for creditors' rights to expire. A creditor can throw their hat in the ring, be the administrator or the executor. And I've received those letters from some of my probate people where they brought me letters in that were there. Somebody wrote them and said, if you don't open an estate, a probate estate, we will, because here in Tennessee, after 12 months, creditor rights run out. So if nothing's opened by the 9th or 10th month, and the hospital is owed a lot of money or something like that, they'll open it for you. And surprisingly enough, creditors get appointed in those executor and administrator roles more often than you think. So that was her theory. She had money due, but you see, she was not the administrator. That ended up being Mary. But the thing that also surprised me is, you often hear people say, well, people come out of the woodwork when somebody passes away. Well, think about this. Cher, at the time of Sonny's death, she went on to be pretty famous and did better than Sonny. He had a restaurant for a while, and he was, did some songwriting, that sort of thing. But she was worth a whole lot more. Back in 1998, at the time of his death, her net worth was in the neighborhood of $300 million. So she's suing Sonny for, what, $1.5 million? I mean, did she really need it that bad? I don't know. But this is that, even if she didn't, she had a right to sue, and she apparently did. So, kind of lowers her a notch or two in my book, but nonetheless, she certainly, anyway, so there was that going on. Also, what was going on is during the probate, lo and behold, they had that one child. They had the one child together, but there was a 35-year-old guy named Sean Macho, who surfaced as what they call a love child. He claimed he was a natural blood heir of Sonny's. And actually, Sonny had wrote an autobiography, which he entitled after one of their famous songs. The Beat Goes On was the name of it. And in the autobiography, Sonny actually admitted to having an affair with this Sean Macho's mother. Not a bright idea, Sonny. Probably not the best of things to put in an autobiography, but nonetheless it was. And I guess from what I found on Mr. Sean Macho's birth certificate, it listed Salvatore Bono, a.k.a. Sonny, as the father. So, he surfaced and he wanted his piece of the pie because, if you write a will, he could leave it to whoever he wanted, but since he didn't write a will, the laws of intestate succession go to the surviving spouse and direct descendants of what Mr. Macho would have been if he was, in fact, a blood relative of Sonny's. Don't know what happened there. All we know is that he withdrew the lawsuit when they required a DNA test to determine the paternity. So I don't know. I mean, it sounded like he had a good case. He had admission in the autobiography that he messed around with the mother, and he was on his birth certificate. So, it sounded pretty good, but maybe there was a skeleton in the closet there that he didn't want to go forward with. But either way, he dropped out of that. Anyway, it finally, after the 11th or 12th year, finally resolved the probate. The estate was eventually divided between his surviving spouse, Mary, and he had two children. He had Chastity, which is the one that changed gender, and she's now Chaz, but if you remember that. I guess Chaz Bono is her name now. And Christy Bono Fossey, which was a child from his very first marriage. Okay, so intestate succession went, just as I said, to the surviving spouse and any blood children that he had, and he had two. He had Chastity with Cher, and Christy with the first wife. I don't know her name, but anyway, hey, listen. The point is, there's no telling. The real takeaway from this is there's no telling the kind of stuff your heirs are going to have to deal with if you don't get your affairs in order and take care of it during life. I mean, you've heard me say it, and you've heard me say it until you're probably sick of hearing me say it, but it still holds true. I mean, you need to do some estate planning. You need to put some documents in place to keep your heirs from going through this kind of nonsense. I mean, a lot of people say, well, I don't have much of an estate. It doesn't matter. Look, Cher. It's just pure greed that comes out of people. She had $300 million, so she sued him for $1 million. I mean, I mean, so it doesn't matter what you have. Pure greed is going to bring people out of the woodwork. And if you don't have any will at all, it really sounds like it's up for grabs. And so, if you have a will or no will, anything that goes through probate, any challenge is entertained by the probate court. I mean, no, the probate court will not summarily dismiss a challenge to a will or to an intestate succession. They will entertain all challenges. So the burden shifts. Now you got to prove that you got to defend the estate, and they have to put on proof as to why they're entitled to something. So all this stuff can happen. When you have a trust, I'm a big fan of trust because there's so much you can do. A trust we can make bulletproof. You actually put valid interim clauses or no contest clauses that are 100% enforceable in a trust. They are not enforceable in a will. So, don't put them through it, please. Give it some thought. And do not put your family through the process of probate, the process of this fighting, arguing over, if you've got any wealth at all and you want to pass it on to them, let's do it clean, let's do it smooth, let's decide it up front now during life so no questions have to be answered by them. That's the whole point. A lot of times I'll tell people, if you decide to do a trust plan, you don't do it for, whatever you do, you don't do for you do it for the people you love. And that's kind of exactly what it is. The only exception to that is when we talk about the long-term health care, the nursing home, and you want to try to hang on to the property you've worked on for all your life. That is something you do for yourself as well as your heirs. And that's we do trust for that as well. You've heard me talk about that. So that's the Ask Stan show for today. Just want to tell you what's coming up. We're taking a big step here at the end of August. We're actually going to do one of my live seminars. I'm going to do it in this building 2 doors down from me where we have a real easy social distancing layout there. That's going to limit the number of RSVPs, but I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to do the live seminar. You can come and sit at it. Like I said, with the social distancing, we keep all the surfaces clean, practice all that. You want to wear a mask, that's fine. But I'm also going to stream it live, sort of like this, Facebook Live, or if I can stream, I might stream it live on Zoom. But, so if you're not comfortable coming out and being with, people, you can still take advantage of. So I'm going to kind of do both, kind of a hybrid. But it's time to start getting back to what we call normal and, do these things in person. We just take all the precautions. Anyway, that's happening at the end of August, the 27th, which is a Thursday. I'm doing it twice that day. So we got plenty of time. I'll talk about that on the several next Ask Stan Thursday shows. Got 2 more virtual ones in the meantime. July 30th, which is a Thursday, I'm doing my wills, trusts, in the nursing home at 6 o'clock. I'm also doing the same thing on August the 13th, which is a Thursday at 6 o'clock. Wills, trusts, in the nursing home. That's where we talk about everything. The basic foundational revocable living trust plan, that's probate avoidance, costs a lot less than probate. We go over the pros and cons of probate, the advantages of the trust, the fact that it's public instead of private, and the outright distribution. And then we also launch into the irrevocable, the income-only asset protection trust, which is the only way, let me say that again, which is the only way to solve the problem of how to keep your assets from being taken by long-term health care. So if that interests you, and it should, if you hadn't thought about it, you really ought to. You want to keep the home or the family farm, want to give it to your children, make sure they get it, there's a way. But we've got to do it. We've got to build a little bit of timing into it. Can't wait till the last minute because then we have to sort of play catch up. And so let's not take the wait and see approach. Let's plan. Let's avoid the Sonny and Cher fiasco as their beat went on, so to speak. But okay, hey, that's the Ask Stan show today, July 16th at noon. As always, if you have questions, let me check and see. Don't see anything posted. If you have questions, you know how to ask them. Facebook me, email me, stop in and ask. And we'll get them on the Ask Stan show or at the WKSR bonus hour every Thursday at 8:30. So that's it. We'll see you next Thursday. Thanks for tuning in to the Ask Stan show.